Okay, here we are in Photoshop. We're going to just navigate in the open window to the file folder you should have of all the materials for this interior render. We're going to open up that diffuse layer that we just rendered out, the render element. Control click will open up material ID. Let's also open this Office KGVVS kind of reference file, and we'll open up the Collage Entourage PSD file that I've made. And what we'll do with this Entourage file is I'll go in and kind of show some of the techniques that might be helpful if some you don't know for kind of easily selecting or editing reference material or source material that we're going to collage with. But for now, a lot of the time for this tutorial, we're just going to drag and drop off of this file that I've made, and I'll just do a couple examples. And again, that's one of the nice things about using Photoshop for this, unlike, obviously collaging with a magazine, is that you can edit, the source material you find to match a certain aesthetic or to come together in a nicer final image. And if we look at this one, we can see obviously all the entourage is black and white, and this kind of has this purposeful low resolution, high contrast as part of you could say maybe a way of not distracting or just kind of being different to the architecture that they're showing here. So that's a way of approaching it. You could have another way, but let's try and do something similar to what they've done here. So to start, let's zoom in here. We've got this kind of gravel pit. We're going to use, I think this was originally a color photo that I made grayscale and maybe up the contrast. We're going to drag that over on top of this diffuse layer. And lucky for us, kind of low res is part of the aesthetic here, so we don't have to worry too much if we have to stretch it or resize it to fit. And while we're at it, let's also drag over this material ID and snap that. It'll snap perfectly. And we'll just bring it below, and we can close that here. Okay, so now that we're ready in Photoshop to work with this, you can alt-click the eye of, in this case, the material ID, but whichever one you're trying to isolate, and we will go ahead just with the magic wand and we'll select, whoops, got to be on the right layer. We'll select all these areas that are that outdoor ground. You can alt-click that again, it'll bring you back. And on the gravel ground layer we've dragged in, you can see actually, it doesn't matter now, we'll adjust it. With those same selections on the gravel ground layer, you're then going to hit mask. That's going to mask out those areas, but we can see obviously it's not quite in the right spot. So if you select the kind of layer, not the mask, oops. Control select maybe? Yeah, there we go. Control select that. You can drag it up and position it. You might even want to scale it up a bit more or something, but position it in a way that it doesn't have to look realistic, but looks the way you want it to look. I don't know how else to put it. Okay, that's not bad. So now we'll move on to maybe the wood floor. So again, if you just go to open, we'll bring in this straight grain here. Actually, no, I forgot. We have it all in here. So you can see now that's where it came from. It was just kind of a tiled grain. We can drag this over. That's not quite big enough. We'll have to scale it up. And then just doing the exact same thing, but this time, oops, you gotta be on the right layer. Selecting the wood floor. This material ID makes it really easy to do that. Then we can go to this wood grain and mask it. Okay, so it's starting to come together. Let's keep looking back at our reference. Okay, one of the next things we'll do is we'll add some of this kind of texture and maybe some of the shading on the tile just lightly, not to give it too much of a 3D effect, but just to help us. You know, it looks obviously very flat here. So for that, I was kind of obviously basing it off of the precedent here, but you can find all kinds of textures. For this, I took a stone texture, again, just on one of these websites that has a ton of textures. So in this case, we're going to do a similar thing. We're going to mask it off, but then we're going to use blend modes to work it in essentially to just that turquoise. So now that it's dragged off, we can hide it for now. We'll go here and select the purple. Whoops. Oh, yeah, sometimes you need to lower the tolerance because those two colors are a little bit similar that the material ID layer gave us. You can also go into select color range, sample colors. See, again, that's kind of picking up all these other purples. So if you bring it down, you should be able to isolate just the purples we're actually going for. There, that's good. Oh, so we're missing that one for some reason. Okay, well, another. Try lower. There we go. Okay, that's good enough. There, those are the tiled rooms. So we can now go onto this diffuse layer. Actually, sorry, now to the stone layer. Sorry, keep it on top. We'll create a mask. And we'll bring that just on top of the diffuse layer. So it's laid on top of the tiles there. And then with that stone layer selected, you're going to go and change the blend mode here, which is kind of dictating how that image, if you want it to kind of dissolve or blend into the image below it. There's many different ways you can tell Photoshop to do that. And I think I have a file somewhere that kind of runs down what they all are actually doing I can share. But for this, we're going to go use hard light. Yeah, that's not bad. And then, you just use opacity to kind of control how intense you want that to be. So, something like that is maybe not too bad. Or maybe the scale is a little big on the stone. You could scale it down and kind of perfect it. But for now, this looks pretty good for us. Okay, so next let's go ahead and again, it's a what we were saying is a flat render, but there are some little kind of cues that help show depth of some 3 dimensions, like even the way that in here this wood wall that's further away is a bit darker, or this back wall is darker. So let's do some of that as well as one of the next things that we work on.